Today, November 8th, Canadians proudly mark Indigenous Veterans Day. It is a day to commemorate the unique contributions and sacrifices that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have made serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. From the First World War to the Korean War, and still very much today, Indigenous peoples have volunteered their diverse talent and skills, with more than 12,000 Indigenous women and men answering the call of duty to serve Canada with pride and honor. Even though they donned the same uniform as their comrade in arms and upheld the same oath to defend Canada, at home they were denied the very rights and freedoms they fought to protect. So as we remember their courage and determination during the world's darkest hours, all Canadians should recognize the barriers like racism they overcame just so they could enlist. Many of them served on the front lines, and many of them never returned home. We honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice to defend the freedom we all enjoy today. And we must do better to learn their stories. Stories like that of Private Thomas Godcher, a member of the Anishinaabe First Nations who fought valiantly and died at Vimy Ridge. Or that Indigenous veterans like Mary Grey Eyes, who broke down barriers in the Canadian Armed Forces. Or of Tommy Prince and his legendary bravery. But there are many others whose stories are not as well known. For over a century, thousands of Indigenous peoples have stepped up and contributed their unique skills to the Canadian Armed Forces. They have assumed leadership roles in fields across the Canadian Armed Forces, from engineering to medicine, mechanics to system specialists. Today is a day for all Canadians to seek out their stories, to celebrate each of their contributions and sacrifices, and to honor their passion, dedication, and service, which is a model for all of us. Let us take the time to consider, commemorate, and celebrate the unique military contributions that Indigenous peoples have made for Canada and continue making today. Let us thank them for their service. Merci pour votre service, lest we forget. N'oublions pas.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below.
We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field.
Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field.
Good morning, everyone. As you know, Saturday is Remembrance Day, a day where we take time to remember those men and women who have sacrificed their bodies and minds in the line of duty. I'm ever mindful that because of these sacrifices, I have never been put in a position where I have had to die or even worse, kill for my country. Instead, I've had this luxury of thinking about war as a concept. In my years in education, I've probably attended anywhere from 40 to 45 Remembrance Day ceremonies, each moving and profound in their own way, and I've always valued the opportunity to come together to remember and reflect. There is a danger, however, that these moments of remembrance remain just that, isolated moments. We come together, we think about war, we get sad, and then get back to our busy lives. This is inevitable to some extent. Time marches on, of course, but I'm going to challenge you today to reimagine what Remembrance Day can be. When I was younger, I think my perception of war was framed by my understanding of choices. I presumed that wise people in positions of great power were making thoughtful decisions and that the reasons for wars were either unfathomably evil or unquestionably just. I believed that the men who fought the wars were there by choice, also largely for ideological reasons, and that their inevitable sacrifices of mind, body, and spirit were somehow a fair trade-off for whatever values they were fighting for. What I'm struck by now, and perhaps as a matter of age, is how naive this way of thinking seems. When I think of the thousands of faces of soldiers I've seen, from haunting black and white images from World War I over 100 years ago, to images from conflicts that are happening right now, I'm always struck by how young these soldiers look. While I don't doubt that there were countless brave and noble choices made by many, both before and after they entered the field of war, I'm also equally certain that there were those on the fields who had little, if any, choices in their lives, right up to when they faced a final moment of horror and certainty. The annals of history will also tell us that those wise men directing armies were just as prone to be selfish and misguided as they were to be altruistic and just. I don't have to tell anyone here that in any conflict, those who die for causes, both just and unjust, are outnumbered vastly by the many innocents who suffer and die while listening to ultimately empty reasons and rationales. I know that we're all looking forward to a little time off in the coming days, but I'd ask that on November 11th, you set aside a little time to think of those who lost parts or all of themselves, both physically and psychologically, fighting battles that may or may not have changed the world. Those people were literally no different than you. They share the same DNA. They had friends and families, hopes and dreams, and doubts and fears, just as we all do. I also know that in our Queenie school community, we are not too far removed from these sacrifices. There are students in this building who have lived in the midst of war, just as there are people of all ages in our building who have lost loved ones or go to bed each night worrying about someone half a world away who are in the midst of conflict right now. I don't know how we honor sacrifices that remain for many of us unimaginable, but I know that a moment of silence once a year just doesn't cut it. Even on our worst days here, we live a life with a range of choices that few in the history of the world could imagine. My hope is that as you embrace those opportunities to make big choices in your life, what you're going to do for a living, who you'll spend your life with, that you never lose sight of those little daily choices, to choose kindness instead of meanness, respect instead of anger, and how they make up who you are. Freedom is not a tap we turn on and off. It's something we live every day and something we honor every day through the choices we make. I challenge you all to respect those who sacrifice for our freedom by respecting yourself and those around you on a daily basis and making every little choice one that reflects the person you aspire to be. Your choices, ultimately, should be living monuments that are much more powerful and long-lasting than a statue or a wreath. Thank you.